Well, for more on those stories, I'm joined now on the line from New York by Arise Special Correspondent James Blue. Good to see you as always, James. President Trump doesn't really like President Maduro very much, does he? I mean, you don't have to scratch too far beneath the surface to see that, do you?
No, there isn't much love lost between President Maduro and President Trump. And the sanctions, which, as you mentioned, are on 6 shipping companies within Venezuela and 3 of Mr. President Maduro's nephews. They are nephews of his wife. And one of the shipping companies is owned by a close business associate. And so what it's very clear is the President Trump and the Trump administration is really trying to put pressure on Venezuela, and they're trying to do it personally so that the sort of actions of the Venezuelan state and the actions that they're taking out will have a direct impact on the Maduro leadership. And so, you have this seizure in the Atlantic, which is, taking of a ship. Now, this ship had a record of moving across the world, often concealing its location. And it really was one of many ships that are involved in the sort of illicit transit of oil from embargoed places. And so the goal is to try to pressure these ships and these sort of rogue carriers to stop taking Venezuelan oil. And, even though Venezuela has the world's largest sort of known reserve supply of oil, it only sort of contributes about 1% of the actual global oil market. And so the oil price, despite the seizure, really did not change. And that's because Venezuela has such a small input into the global oil economy.
So, I mean, with the imposition of new sanctions on these 6 ships that you're talking about, the Trump administration, it says they're carrying Venezuelan oil, as well as the seizure of an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela by US forces on Wednesday. I mean, it looks like the White House is widening its drug smuggling campaign against Venezuela, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, they're definitely increasing tactics against Venezuela, and I think it's likely to escalate. And I think, one of the sort of issues is really trying to establish sort of the authority to do this. If you listen to the White House press briefing, they had a warrant to seize the ship, and they are now trying to get sort of the legal basis to seize the cargo. And so I think we all can expect the United States to use the oil that is on this ship. It's known as the Skipper. It's a state-owned, it was carrying oil from PDVSA, which is the state-owned oil company. And so what the U.S. is trying to do now is go to court so that they have the sort of legal imprimatur to actually use and sell the oil that was destined for Iran. Yes, this is an escalation. This is an attempt to dissuade other tankers and tank crews from moving Venezuelan oil. And I believe the Skipper was sailing under a Guyanese flag. It was not registered in Venezuela. And I think, there are a number of vessels who are doing this kind of traffic, and this is an attempt to stop them all.
So basically, this is the start of a different chapter in America's military campaign against Venezuela, where potentially we could see the US starting to seize Venezuela's resources. Just tell us, James, about the impact or potential impact of these seizures and sanctions on Venezuela. Is it likely to add to that pressure that's been building on President Maduro, even if the White House isn't saying that that is explicitly what this is about? Because, I mean, oil is one of the main, as you said, revenue producers for Venezuela, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's really very clear what the administration is trying to do, Charles. And one of the challenges of life in Venezuela is that it's very, very difficult. There are very few resources. There's very little hard currency, and things are very tough. And one of the things that's been very surprising as things have gotten worse in the country is the fact there hasn't been more widespread protests. There hasn't been more sort of upset and anger publicly expressed against the Maduro regime. And so I think one of the tactics that you will increasingly likely see, and the fact that the Nobel Peace Prize winner showed up in Oslo with support of the United States military in getting there, I think you're going to see sort of a ratcheting up. And the real question is whether Venezuelans will come out and support this U.S. action, or whether they will feel like their sovereignty is being violated and they will stick and hew to support for President Maduro. You must remember that although Maduro is in office, it is widely known and critiqued that he did not win the most recent election in Venezuela. So he is not a legitimate, duly elected official. And so that is potentially the space that the U.S. is trying to seize to help people really recognize they may and have a chance to do something different. And the real question is, given that opportunity, will they take it? We just don't know. But things are really dire on the ground in Venezuela. And it's one of the reasons why there aren't many reporters there. It's very hard to find food. It's just a really challenging place to be day in and day out. And that's one of the reasons so many Venezuelans have flocked to other places, including the United States, which President Trump referenced in the clip that you played.
Well, we'll be keeping a close eye on what's going on between the US and Venezuela. But one more Trump-related story, James, before we let you go. The Republican-controlled Senate in Indiana voting against a new congressional district map, which would have helped the party retain its slender majority in the US House of Representatives in the midterm elections next year. What do you make of that?
Well, this is another example that President Trump's grip on the Republican Party is beginning to slip. And his sort of take no prisoners, do it my way or the highway, and we have to do any and everything to win, just is not winning with some rank and file Republicans. And so Indiana has been one of those places where there are 7 congressional seats that go to the Republicans. There are 2 for the Democrats, and President Trump wanted all 9 seats. And the local party basically just said, no, we're not going to do that. So by a vote of 19 to 31, they were able to block the effort to change those congressional seats. It did pass the Indiana House. It did not pass the upper chamber of the Indiana Senate. And what this does really say is that there is, even within the Republican Party, people willing to say no to President Trump. Now, what is likely to happen? They will likely face primary challenges from more MAGA pro-Trump people. They will likely be swatted where, emergency services are called to their house for fake emergencies, and they will have to endure, some of them, actual death threats to themselves and to their families. That is the extent to which some of the folks in the MAGA community are willing to go to get what they want. But at this point, and for the next election in Indiana, the lines will remain as they are, and it's likely that the Indiana will keep 7 seats for the Republicans and 2 for the Democrats.
James, as always, thanks ever. James Blue is Arise special correspondent. He was talking to me on the line from New York.